Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. We're your host. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Brandon, and thanks for joining us for our latest episode.
Today, we'll be speaking with Athena Severi, co-founder of the Titan Network. Athena is going to go over why finding community can be a game changer when running an FBA business. She's going to share how you can grow your business by leveraging your network and the knowledge of others. She also digs into what mistakes can lead to the greatest consequences and the best lessons from members of her mastermind group.
That's right, Sarah, but we don't want to give away too much just yet, so let's dig into the interview and see what Athena has to share, and then at the end of the episode, we'll go over some common questions online business owners face and what you can learn from them today. So let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast. We are so excited to have our new friend on, Athena Severi from the Titan Network. So Athena, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Brendan. I'm super excited to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. So start things off. Tell everyone where you're calling from in the world right now.
Sure. I'm in beautiful Clearwater, Florida. White sandy beaches, aqua warm oceans. It's rough, I must say, but yeah, I'm here in Clearwater.
That is so cool. Yeah. And we were just saying earlier, you're from California. So basically you and Brandon and like all of our other guests, I think we only have Californians on. It's the craziest thing. But one day we're going to find someone else from Virginia, I swear.
There you go.
It won't be just me. Awesome. So, for those who don't know you, let's talk about your journey a little bit. Walk us through about your entrepreneurial journey. Where did it get started and how did you make your way into the crazy world of online business?
Okay, cool. So I was working for, a corporate sort of consulting firm for many years, and I had two very small boys. I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And one of the things I really struggled with was sort of being able to be a mom and juggle my career and just life. And I remember having to put my youngest in preschool before I felt ready, before he was ready. Like there'd be tears every morning when I'd have to drop him off. And one of the things I really struggled with was the lack of freedom that having such an intense job brought to my life. Living in LA with prices of real estate and everything, like you just kind of can't really give up working, for most families. And so what happened for me is there's actually Chelsea Cohen, who you've had on this podcast. She's fantastic. And her husband, Ari, was working at the same consulting firm as I. And he was quitting his job. And I was like, so what are you going to do, Ari? He's like, well, I'm actually selling kitchen products on Amazon. And I literally laughed out loud. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like you're quitting your consulting job to go sell these kitchen products on Amazon. And he's like, yeah, for real. And so we went and had lunch and he opened his Seller Central account, open to me, and just showed me what was being deposited in his bank account every couple weeks. And I was like, whatever that is, give me a piece of that. And that was my first real intro to the seller side of Amazon FBA.
Wow, that's so crazy. So you actually got introduced to Amazon FBA through your friends. And so was it something that you were kind of skeptical at first, or once you saw the numbers, was that really where it solidified, like, okay, this is a legitimate way of making money now?
There's this sort of crazy streak that entrepreneurs tend to have. Not all of them, but I have, where I'm like, I don't really see the fear of it. I was like, okay, that looks great. Let's do that. So I just bought the course that he had, taken, and I started developing my own brand of yoga accessories. I actually started out with like yoga headbands, and I was building that up. And luckily, I'm a community builder. I have been since I could speak. So, I put on full concerts because I was dating a bassist when I was 13, and then when I became like a young adult, like I'd always put on these big old dinner parties and all kinds of things, anything to bring people together. And then when I became a mom, I actually developed an entire world of moms, and I put on picnics and conventions, and they'd be sponsored by major corporations, and we'd bring in the fire trucks. It was just like a thing. Basically, events are my love language and building community is just part of my soul. And so when I went to launch my first brand, I was lucky that I had this full community of women that were super supportive of me, and they would, just buy any of my products. They were great to survey. And so it was just really easy to kind of kick off my first initial brand because I happened to have that community that I'd been building and nurturing for quite some time. So that was really quite amazing. And then I built it up over a few months to where it started to generate enough income. And I remember waking up that morning and putting on my I Quit outfit. I was so excited. So I walked into the owner of the company's office and I said, hey, you know what? I love you, but I'm done. And he says, I love you too. And I know everyone could tell that I was just way too excited about building my own business and having that freedom. And so that day I walked out of the office for the very last time. And I remember waking up the next morning and not having to take my little one to school anymore. I brought him to the zoo and it was just a very special moment for me. So I took a photo of me with him at the zoo and I posted it in my mommy group. And I said, ladies, I am so excited that I finally have the freedom to be the mom I've wanted to be. And I quit my job today. I did this whole thing. And the reaction that I got was massive. These women were like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? How did that happen? So I was like, cool. And I went and I wrote to the course that I had taken and I got a link to that course and I posted it in my mommy group. And I had so many people sign up to become Amazon sellers themselves because they saw me kind of go through it, that all of a sudden I found myself in this mentor position, even though I was a very, very new Amazon seller myself.
Wow, that's really crazy. And just to hear that you were able to build that community and you have this large group of people that are kind of looking up to you for advice and seeing you making this transition into online business. And that's really amazing to hear that story. And you already had that community built. So I'm curious, we know that you're the co-founder of Titan Network, which is a mastermind group for Amazon sellers as well. So for our listeners who might not be aware, what exactly does Titan Network Mastermind do? And kind of what are some of the services that you guys offer? Or maybe some of the benefits of being in this mastermind group?
Absolutely. Well, if I take you through the next couple of stages, it'll perfectly explain what Titan is. But to be fair, just for anyone who's listening now, Titan Network is a platform for scale. So it's anyone from the beginning of their journey as an Amazon seller all the way to guys who are doing 7, 8 figures. What we do is we focus on each stage of growth. And we have everything from, software to mentoring, and we have weekly coaching, and we have master classes, and it's a very complete system. And we see massive, massive scale because these guys are experts and they actually work with people to help them with those specific needs. So that is Titan. And I'll kind of go through the story. You'll see how it was built this way because it's kind of magical that it even exists because of the level of human beings involved. So to kind of go back to that story with the women, I knew I was not strong enough as a seller to support all these people who had just signed up to become Amazon sellers. So that's why I went out in the community and I was looking for sellers who were multi-million dollar sellers who were in the game, authorities in the space, not particularly known authorities, but just people who were super, super successful. And I would bring them in and we would do master classes and webinars and things for my girls. And I started putting on events for them. And then I even did a cruise. And by this point, I started attracting not just the women that had signed up for the course, but people from everywhere because word got out. My events were just the top of the line. I ended up putting on a cruise to the Caribbean. And I used that same formula where we had people who really knew their things and they would open up and say, hey, this is my strategy. This is what I'm doing. And they would work with people right there. So we had a whole week of that. And by the end of it, people told me, Athena, I've spent $25,000, $50,000 on masterminds. I've never experienced anything like this. This is a gift. This is you. And that's really where I kind of came into my own. I was like, there's something to this. And so then right after that, I was still building my own brand. And I was really struggling with the concept of sourcing. Sourcing was always sort of just painful for me just because you're dealing with a lot of different colors and sizes. And every time I try to develop a new product, so many weeks of back and forth. And it was just hard to really build my business out because of that. So I was at somebody else's event and they pitched me to go to China. So I did. I went and I spent a bunch of money to go on somebody else's trip for a few days. And that was several years ago. But the thing about this trip that I wasn't fascinated by is the way that they were approaching the Chinese suppliers was in a very Western, sort of uneducated, sort of an incorrect kind of bullying way. They would tell them to go in and pretend to be these massive businesses and then talk down their MOQs and talk down their pricing. And it just felt very strange, right? So I did a little research and I realized it's just human nature. But people really, really do well with relationships and with respect. And so I felt like this trip was just not representing the right way of sourcing, and the right way of building partnerships with factories. And so I developed my own trip to China called China Magic. And I brought 50 people on my first trip. And I brought this guy who'd been going to China for like 25 years, who had connections all over China, who was just an absolute expert. And he educated people on the right way of having respect, how to hold your little business card and present it correctly, how to actually talk to them and say, hey, oh, wow, like how long has your family owned this factory? And tell me more about this. And then how to actually, really work with the Chinese suppliers to where they were your partners instead of just a supplyee type of thing. So that's where China Magic was born, which has become pretty much the most prominent sourcing trip in the world is for Amazon sellers.
Yeah, that's really amazing that you were able to establish those connections and bring this mastermind group over to China and kind of give them a first sight, I guess, to the real, strategy to building the relationships with the suppliers. So I think that's really beneficial, I'm sure, was for the whole mastermind group that went with you. And when it comes to maybe prospects or new customers that are coming into the mastermind group, do you see a lot of first-time Amazon sellers joining, or is it kind of a mix between seasoned veterans already in the ecosystem with Amazon? Or just curious what your take is on that.
So we can work with pretty much anyone who, like I said, we've got people who are just starting their journey, who we can show them from the beginning the right way of sourcing, the right way of product development. There's just so many mistakes that people make in the beginning, and it just takes so many years and hundreds of thousands of dollars of testing things to actually figure out how to do it right. And if you join our mastermind, you're working with people who've already been through all that. So they just kind of give you the shortcut to actually, scale a business. Like you can hit those 7 figures in the first year if you put enough dedication, enough energy, and sometimes enough resources. Like there's just so much false information out there, like how to start an Amazon business. And the other thing that's kind of scary is that people don't treat some of these parts of building an Amazon business with enough sort of education. As an example, sourcing is so important. And I still see people, sometimes these people are selling multi-million dollars on Amazon. They sourced on Alibaba. They have terrible terms. They're constantly having cash flow issues because they don't understand how to do this professionally. So within Titan, we show you not just the surface level, but we go deep into every part of one's business. And then we have these absolute masters in those areas that are on their live to actually work with people, answer their questions, help them with their difficulties. And that's why I think we're seeing people scale and kind of grow in a way that would be impossible if you're just out there on your own, which really is the power of community and the power of having something like the Titan Network.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear on. I've got a couple, those follow-up questions that relate to what you just said. But before we get there, I want to set the time and place here. So let's paint a picture of Amazon at the moment, and certainly where it's been in the past, what feels like a million years, let's say the past year and a half, certainly during the pandemic, we've seen all sorts of growth and changes felt in the Amazon ecosystem. How have you seen sellers have to pivot and to really be flexible in order to make it on the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it has been definitely adventurous. That's a good word. There'd be changes that would happen. As an example, the limitations on being able to send enough inventory to Amazon has been a huge struggle. We've had to go to third-party logistics companies. And what happened was that the change happened so quickly that those 3PLs were just completely bombarded. And so one of the great things about having these connections is we were able to kind of get to the front of the line on a few of them and actually have some really good connections, because you have to be able to pivot. And so that was one of the major challenges. Obviously, some categories got really, really hit by the pandemic and some of them flourished. And so being able to sort of pivot, like when you are in a category like travel and different things, like we were really helping our guys to just kind of see how within their brands they could really start to pivot towards things that would be more popular and more sustainable when they might have been really centric around something that was kind of dead. And then just really some of my guys were just growing so quickly. They were having a lot of inventory issues. Shipping has been a bit crazy. So there's definitely been challenges, but one of the things that I felt really happened in sort of 2020, 2021 is it really kind of showed who has the guts to persevere and who doesn't. I feel like we lost a lot of the guys that, were sort of dabbling in Amazon, because in order to kind of keep up, like, you needed to be a pro, and, you needed to be able to spend more on getting enough inventory to come in and be able to warehouse. Like, there's just so much more to it than there was a few years ago when we were playing sort of a different game. But I feel like the ones who really went all in are seeing numbers they never dreamed of, and the ones that didn't basically kind of got blown off the face of the earth, which is terrible to say, but that's sort of what I saw. It was sort of almost the survival of the fittest.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, we heard from a lot of sellers recently the past year of just, it's like the best and worst case scenario where you're selling out so quickly, you're thrilled, you're making tons of money, yet you absolutely cannot keep up with the demand and the inventory and kind of keep that ball rolling. It's a pretty tough place to be in. So it started as a blessing, turned out to be a curse for some people. And like you said, it wasn't necessarily a game that everybody could keep up with. You were mentioning earlier those challenges, and you said, I think you mentioned, some of those mistakes that people make. I wanted to dig into that a little bit. What would you say are the seemingly small mistakes that can end up having a profound impact on an FBA business? And how do you help sellers steer clear of those?
Okay, so let's go. I love this. Product selection, that is such an important part. And I feel like it's so key for someone to really, really understand what they're getting into, because what I see with novice sellers is that they just won't go all in enough sometimes, or sometimes they'll go way too far in with the wrong products. So I think really starting out with a base and knowing kind of who your customer avatar is, really niching things down and finding a product that you can compete in where you're not going for something like cell phone cases or vitamin C serum or something ridiculous, right? Because I see too many Amazon FBA sellers like start off and try to play with the big boys when you have no business playing with the big boys, and you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to compete in some of these categories properly. And so if you go in and you have 1,000 units of vitamin C serum, I'm so sorry, but you're probably not going to get anywhere. You might end up on page 536, right? So I feel like you need to be properly educated and doing your keyword research, understanding the proper way of launching, understanding, what is your game plan? Do you want to build a 6-figure business, 7-figure, 8-figure? Like, even before you get started, I feel like it's so important for you to even know where you're going with it. Because if you really want a 7-figure business, you're going to have to constantly be launching products. In order to make that work, you're going to have the funds to be able to do that. So it's almost like you need to know where you stand with this game and play it properly for whatever way you want to play it. Otherwise, it's silly, and you're going to end up spinning your wheels, and then people end up like losing money, and then they get disheartened. So I think you need to be properly educated on the main basics of how to get going. And then working with people, whether it's my network or someone else, like, why try to figure all this out on your own if there's people who really know what they're doing that you can learn from? So I think listening to these podcasts are fantastic. You guys have an amazing podcast. I feel like, joining a proper community, working with mentors, like, all of that is so important, because we'll literally save you from making just really silly mistakes. But I will say one of the main things I also try to tell people is, like, get enough funds to really make this work. Spend enough money on getting proper photos. You know what I mean? Don't be cheap. Like, if you're not a great copywriter, hire a really great copywriter. You know what I mean? Like, if you're really not good at understanding the back end of Amazon, find someone that is. Like, don't try to pretend to be a photographer and buy like a little light box in your basement, because you're not going to get proper photos. And then you might get like enough inventory. You might spend plenty on your inventory, but then you've got crappy photos and your listing's never going to convert. So I'd say to kind of wrap this all up, it's like, know where you're going, be a professional, learn how to do all of these things in the right way. Don't overshoot or undershoot when it comes to building your business. And for me, I think it's like also just going all in and knowing this is a proper business. It's going to take work and you might fail, and not letting that fear of failure cause you to take too long. That's another part of it, is not having enough seed to make this work.
Yeah, that's really solid advice. And also making sure that you're aware of like what you're getting into, right? As you had mentioned, you don't want to step into something and not have all the proper resources or tools or even the skill set in order to grow the business, because now that's ultimately a potential investment that could be lost, right? So yeah, I completely agree with you on that, and really solid advice, understanding what your strong suits are and then utilizing those to the best of your ability. Now, we know that you've worked with many sellers in the Amazon FBA ecosystem and, in a broad range of listings prices as well. But I'm curious, what is some of your best advice that you would give when it comes to scaling for 7 or maybe 8-figure sellers?
I think that, I keep kind of going back to having proper advice, but one of the things is not doing everything yourself. Like I see these guys who try to scale, and it's so important to actually hire proper help around you and to take a look at like the tasks that you're doing. And like my business partner, Dan Ashburn, always says like, Athena, why are you doing a $4 an hour task, right? Like that's so silly. So delegating, building a team out, and then each part of the business just having systems in place, having SOPs in place, and sourcing and cash flow can be a big part of it. I really believe like one of the master classes we have within Titan is just how to get supplier terms. So some people are putting 30% down, they're paying 70% on shipping. We'll do something like 10% down and the rest either 30, 60, or 90 days after landing. And so that allows somebody to scale just so much quicker. So I think it's like hiring professionals around you so that you're not doing everything yourself, and then being able to get enough cash flow so that you're launching more products. One of the things that Andrew Erickson, who's one of the Titan leaders, is always saying is always be launching, because if you want to scale, you're going to need to continuously have those fresh products out and having all of that systemized. I mean, it's a lot of things. It's kind of hard to just say just one or two things, but I think some of those things would definitely help.
That's awesome. We're talking about all this different growth advice, and I was wondering, do you have any anecdotes about, sellers within your network they were able to really, transform their businesses, and how were they able to make that happen? What was the advice that helped them go from point A to point Z in terms of growth?
Oh, completely. I mean, we've seen so much growth. I mean, here's just like a super quick example. There's somebody, they said they were doing $25,000 a month the first 3 months that they were selling, and that they did 4 million in sales in their second year, and that they're going to be hitting 7 million their third year. And a lot of that had to do with just having proper launch strategy in place, and they started just adding more products quickly. And so we've got a lot of people that have just completely grown. Some people, it's more about becoming more efficient with the products that they already have and improving conversion. So we just have like stories on stories on stories of, I have a woman, she's a single mom of 5. Her husband literally just walked out on her, and she had a business that was only doing, I think he was doing about 40 or 50,000 a month. And she just scaled it to doing 1.5 million in the last 12 months. And she was just so proud of herself because she was able to completely sustain her family. So we've got like just amazing stories of people who've been able to grow and build these businesses and exit for them. Some of our Titan leaders, Justin and Channing Dyson, built a beautiful brand, and they were able to sell it for almost 8 figures after being in business for about 4 years. They're both 30 years old and have a beautiful family and are able to travel. So that's one of the things I love about this game is like it provides a chance to have that freedom. And like I was saying with my story earlier, what was important to me was not to try to like a Lambo or a big mansion. I just wanted to have the freedom to be able to be home with my kids, and now it's created sort of a wealth and freedom that I never even dreamed was possible. And so being able to kind of help people accomplish that within Titan's just really been a dream come true.
Yeah, it's an amazing accomplishment, being able to work and life balance and being able to separate things and to have the time to spend with your family and friends and do the things that you want on your terms is, something that I'm sure Sarah could also attest to this as well too, something that we both really enjoy as well, and the freedom of travel, I guess, and all of the wonderful things that come with online business. And I'm sure through all of the connections and the community building and all of these different business professionals that you've been meeting and learning from, I'm sure you've learned quite a bit. Was there anything that stood out to you in particular as far as maybe a strategy or something that you learned in the process that also maybe might have surprised you or helped you with your own businesses?
Well, I don't feel like there's one particular strategy, except I do feel like surrounding yourself with people who are 10 steps ahead of you is always going to be that main thing. So out of China Magic, we really saw that there were these guys who were, mentoring these people. And because they were mentors and because they'd already accomplished so much, in 5 minutes, they would solve something that would take somebody maybe 5 months to figure out, right? So I believe in that for myself. Like I invest very much in experts. I hire a lot of consultants. I go to masterminds and events, and I'm always trying to be around people who know more than I do and learn from them instead of, trying to make a million mistakes myself. And I feel like that is the quickest way to grow and the biggest hack there is, because Amazon's always going to change. There's going to always be like some new way of doing things, and there's going to be problems. There's going to be all kinds of things. But if you surround yourself with people who really are successful and know what they're doing and think big and have an abundance mindset, you will learn and grow, not just with your business, but in life and as a human being.
That's awesome. I'm kind of circling back on something that you said earlier in the interview when you were setting this up and your why and what drew you to building this community. You just said that you loved people and that you were very much a community builder from a young age. But obviously, to some people listening to this, they think about it and they're like, I could never build a community. That just sounds really challenging. And so I was wondering, what do you think are the challenges to building a community, especially when, say, people aren't quite melding, or maybe you've got someone struggling to fit in? How do you bond people? How do you overcome those things?
I think it's important to find people that are like-minded because then they gel a lot better, right? And so like you can start your own community where you live. You can create like a little meetup. You can do it virtually. You can find people in Facebook groups. There's a lot of, Amazon communities that you can join that already exist. Or if you want to be a part of Titan, you totally can too. What we do with Titan, to be fair, is before anyone's allowed to join, we actually interview them ourselves to make sure that they're a good fit culturally, because we're looking for people who are very positive, abundantly mindset, like they have to have a huge drive for success, and they have to not have like an ego. Basically, we have like a not being a creep policy. Like they have to be like the kind of person you want to invite over to your home to have a cup of coffee with. And because we kind of like do that, when you come to our events, you just notice that positivity. So you can create that on your own, or you can join a community that already exists. And if you're an introvert, I'll give you just a little tip just to kind of make people more comfortable. Like if you walk up to someone and you just ask them, tell me about yourself, you won't believe how quickly they'll start telling you about, their business or their kids or their dog or whatever it is that interests them the most. And so we do a lot of these exercises when we do our meetups and events and stuff, just to be able to help gel people. So I've actually spoken on stage all over the world at Amazon events to help people with this topic of networking. But it's so important. Like even if you're an introvert, even if you hate networking, find like 3 or 4 people in your life that you can really gel with and like really talk to, because it makes all the difference in the world. And the power of, combined synergy is just so powerful compared to trying to do it all on your own.
That's all really great advice. Yeah. I mean, networking is like, it's the classic thing you're meant to do, right? But it doesn't mean it comes naturally. And there's differing levels of comfort with the idea of networking. And especially if you're an introvert, like you say, like that's probably not going to be the top favorite activities to be going about and doing. But I like your advice where it's like, just turn towards people, treat them like other fellow human beings, be interested in their life and let them do the talking. And all of a sudden, yeah, you're probably going to get a new friend out of it, a new connection, maybe something life-changing for your business. So I think it's those human elements that I think it's so easy to think we need to overcomplicate things. It's like, nope, just be a decent, good human being. And I think we're all going to get there and make this whole thing work.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, be open to helping everyone else. Like you have a skill set, even if you're brand new. I mean, we've had people join Titan who are so new to Amazon, but they have a background in branding or in, human resources, and they know so much about hiring. Like everyone has a skill, everyone is valuable. And if you go with your heart and you really help people, they're going to want to help you back. And it's amazing. Like, why reinvent the wheel? If you have a community, you can ask people like, hey, do you recommend a photographer? Do you recommend a copywriter? Like, what do you think of this software? What do you think of that software? Who should we go to? Like, hey, I'm ready to sell my business. What do you guys recommend? Without having that network, like you really are alone. So it isn't like a funny thing. It isn't like cute, like, oh yeah, you should network because it's fun to hand business cards around. No, it's like, if you want to survive in this world well, it's important to bring other people with you and to help people around you, because it will make you feel better as a human being. But also, it's really hard to go about this alone. And it's just really lonely to do it alone. So it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes me think I'd seen a TED Talk a while back, I think, on the concept they were talking about reciprocity, where it's like really being open and gracious and thankful, willing to help others, can do that. It could be self-motivated, but really it's you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. And then all of a sudden that is actually what fosters a really beautiful series of events where those are the sort of connections where you might offer somebody a bit of help. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, actually, they had the skill set that you really needed for your FBA business. As you pointed out earlier, I really liked how you put it. You're like, do invest in your business. Don't go try to do your own photos and, set up your own ring light and think that that's going to be good enough for your listing.
Don't tell Greg that. He loves his ring lights.
I wanted to joke. I wanted to dig in there and talk about the ring lights. And I was like, no, I'll let the interview go. But no
problem.
Yeah, well, throwing our own boss under the bus in his ring light setup. But, he's YouTubing, so fair enough. He's only selling his own image on the internet, so it's fine.
That's true.
Yeah, but moral of the story is I think it's all great advice, and it's so wonderful to have you on to talk about those things, because I think entrepreneurship is lonely, right? People go in, and certainly in online business, it's very solopreneur focused, and everyone's trying to be that lone wolf, only to find being a lone wolf doesn't always equal success. People see one person finishing at the finish line of an 8-figure business thinking one person did it all on their own. And it's almost like they're never on their own. That comes with a team. It comes with a community. So really, if you want to make those goals happen, figure out who your people are.
Sorry, I was going to just bring up, sometimes having the right partner can also be really helpful as well, because you might have a different skill set. You know what I mean? So like my partner, Dan Ashburn, like he's the systems guy. He's an amazing leader. He's super into like building the tech side of what we do. And then I bring sort of the human element. We would have never been able to accomplish what we've accomplished if we were on our own. So, sometimes it's either working with someone wonderful or hiring someone wonderful, but it can just make a huge difference.
100%. Yeah, we love those stories when we hear that work out. We have a lot of businesses that come and sell with us and a lot of partnerships and vice versa with the buyers. So it's so great to see what you guys have been able to build together. I guess, looking forward a little bit, this one's kind of tough, right? Because we have no idea what's going to happen on Amazon, and we have no idea what's going to happen in the future, especially with how crazy it's been recently. But do you have any future predictions for Amazon? And do you have an idea of what you think it's going to take to really make it on the platform in the years to come?
I think that we're going to see more and more of this consolidation. A lot of people are selling their businesses to larger aggregators. So I think things are going to get more and more professional because of that. But I still think that they're looking for these smaller brands to basically scoop up. So I think that being able to build a consistent brand, being able to be innovative, and just being very professional with it is always going to win the game. And I think that there's a really bright future. I think e-com is like the place to be these days. Just look at what happens in the world. There's so many businesses shutting down. And, Amazon progressed almost 10 years in growth over that 1-year period. So I do see that it's a beautiful world to participate in. I don't totally know what the future predicts. This last couple of years was kind of almost like a sci-fi movie. So you never know what's going to come up. Who would have known the whole world's going to shut down because of a virus? Like, it sounds like a silly 80s sci-fi movie, but it's true. So, I don't have full prediction, but I do believe very much so in the concept of e-com. I believe in being a professional. I think that the more professional you are with your business, you have to treat it as a business, and you have to go in and really do all of it as well as you can, because then when it comes to exit, you guys work with so many people that looking to sell their business. And I'm sure you see like all kinds of different things, you know what I mean? Like mismatched products, and, the financials are kind of awry and they don't really have their sourcing straight. Like if you figure all that out in the beginning and you're building this thing to possibly exit in 2-3 years, like if you understand what you're doing from the start, I think it just makes the process so much better. And you'll probably get a much better multiple as well, just because you've got everything, aligned. So yeah, like treat this as a real business, treat this as a professional. And I just am excited about the future. I can't even tell you how excited I am.
That's awesome. Yeah, you hit on a good point. We talked about a lot this past year in particular, that it is becoming a seller's market, especially in the world of Amazon FBA and increasingly more e-com. It's a good time to be in. Those aggregators are coming in. There's billions now in capital being deployed specifically to pick up these businesses. So if you are one of the lucky few to have a business that would be in their realm of interest, consider if this is your time. Perhaps that is your time to exit, and or at least get your ducks in a row so that by the time you go to exit, like you say, you're going to be able to get those higher multiples. You might want to be careful about making sure that your weaknesses aren't a buyer's growth opportunity, unless you really want to position yourself that way in a sale. Just make sure that you're really working on those things now. So, yeah.
And we showed that to them. Like we actually go through, we have masterclasses on how to build a business properly for exit. from day one. And then even if you're like 7 figures, 8 figures, that information, we have like workbooks on predictions. Like we talk about what is their selling number, what do they want to achieve, and then how to break that down backwards so that they really understand what they're doing. And to me, that's just so important, because if you don't know your destination, how on earth are you ever going to get there? So I think it all ties into everything that we've talked about today. It's like, what does success look like for you? What does happiness and freedom look like for you? What kind of business is going to get you there? What is your happy number? If you're looking to exit, build this properly, go all in. You know what I mean? Like people will spend 150, 200,000 to go in debt in university, and yet they freak out about a $50,000 loan for their Amazon business, right? And it's like, if you want to scale something and exit it for $5 million in a few years, you can in this business. We're like in the golden age of like happiness. Imagine like you can even be a doctor, right? And be in practice for 2-3 years and then, you know, exit for 5 mil. Like that doesn't even happen. So we're in this glorious time, learn from the best, go all in. And man, like some of my friends are like in their early 30s and they're set for life. Not just them, but like their kids are set for life. I have a friend of mine who just exited for $128 million. He's 34 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's insane.
Setting the bar.
His life is set up. He's like, yeah, I was talking to him the other day. I was like, so how does that feel? Like, talk to me. Can we go shopping?
Are we going to do another cruise?
Yeah. Should we just buy the ship? Maybe get an island? Like, what's up?
Why not?
You know? And he's like, you know what? It was now that he understands the process, he's actually starting 3 new brands, despite the fact that he just exited for 128. The guy is crazy, but he's fantastic, and I love him, and I just love that intensity. But it took intensity to get there. It didn't just magically happen. So I think it's important that we know what our goal is, what is happiness, what does that look like, and let's break it down and let's get there, you know, as a group, as a community. And I appreciate what you guys are doing and bringing all these wonderful guests and imparting all this knowledge and helping people. Like it's just so important to have people like you doing that. So I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Oh, well, I appreciate that as well. You know, actually, everything you're just saying kind of relates to we just had like a couple final questions. We usually wrap things up with a rapid fire. In a way, you kind of just answered this. This is the hardest question to answer. So let's say, are you able to answer this in maybe like a short bullet, a rapid fire way? What would you say is the secret sauce to success on Amazon?
Perseverance.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, cool.
Yeah, really solid advice. Perseverance. Don't ever give up. And I really like what you had mentioned earlier, Athena, was, you know, having a goal in mind or your destination. And it reminds me of a phrase I tell people all the time when they're talking about wanting to grow or scale in an online business is know what your destination is. You know, you wouldn't get on an airplane without knowing where you were flying to, right? So I feel like it's the same way with online business, having your goals, your personal or business goals mapped out, and then that taking those baby steps to get to those goals are really the most important thing you can do as a business owner. Next rapid fire question for you, Athena. So what tools or resources do you think could really help Amazon FBA sellers today?
I'm going to go with Titan Network because we've got badass software.
Easy plug, yeah.
Yeah, we've got some amazing software that I have spent a fortune on. So I am very proud of what we've developed. So yeah, I'm going to definitely go Titan. I could probably give you a whole bunch more because I've got great friends in the space, but yeah, I'm just going to go easy and go Titan.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, all of the resources, I was looking through your guys' site as well, and some of the benefits that you guys offer to members is really awesome. Some really great granular resources as well for FBA sellers, which I think is not something that you normally get from like your typical mastermind. So I think that's really great. You guys setting yourselves apart that way. So that's really awesome.
We even have a 150-man team in China that will find factories for our guys and handle all the sourcing and leverage the huge network that we have to get them amazing pricing. So like, you know, we've got everything to kind of help support them. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really a great opportunity as well, too, there. Final rapid question for you. So I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning or maybe even before the call, but what has been your funniest moment working online as a digital entrepreneur?
So I've never told this story, but I had a lady, her name is Angie Chacon, who was one of the first speakers at any of my events. She's just this great woman. She built her business from nothing to doing, 5 million a year, blah, blah, blah. She's amazing. Anyway, while she was giving her bio on stage, she was talking about the fact that she owned this company that had these little kiosk booths. And I realized she was my first boss. I'd never actually met her before, but I used to sell these like magical colored pens that changed colors when I was 16 on Universal City Walk. It was just this like really fun summer job. And she owned that company and I had no idea. So that was just in that moment. I thought that was pretty funny.
Wow. Yeah. Full circle. That's so cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then now it's like, completely different realm. I mean, she was employing you back in the day and now you're like helping her build her businesses with your networks and masterminds. So that's a funny full circle.
Yeah, totally. Well, I super appreciate you guys. I just loving this journey. And if I can serve, you or anyone in any way, like really just it's everything. And I think part of the thing that I'm most proud of is my little boys have a brand as well. And they kind of have been working with some of the kids in our community and they like talk about entrepreneurship the way that you and I would talk about entrepreneurship. So, I'm really proud of, the impact we've created on other people's lives, but to see my own kids sort of get inspired and impacted by what mommy has done and the fact that like I don't see limits, they don't see limits either. And so I think showing our kids in the next generation that like we can build these things, we can create amazing wealth. We don't need to sort of go with the gloom and doom of, the news and the outside thing. Like we can just kind of create our own positivity. I think it's so important. I think if I'm proud of anything so far, it's just not just what we've created within Titan, but just seeing how that has also inspired our next generation.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, awesome. That's super cool. I wish that my parents had done something like that growing up. I had to do like yard work and that was like my entrepreneurship. I don't think I got paid for that.
Okay. So you can totally cut this out if you want, but what was really cute is my kids actually wanted to do a lemonade stand. And I was like, guys, like you could do a lemonade stand or we could develop a lemonade-centric brand. What do you say? They're like, brand. So we found a factory that does like kitchen products and we asked for an entire box of products that were lemon related. And they found their product within that box themselves. And then we, did some research and we punched the number. Like they were through that whole development. And that's actually a very quick tip for people. If they're working with a supplier, it's always good to like ask if they have any other products, related, because not very many people do that. And sometimes they can literally send you a box and there's like 30 products in there. And out of the 30, like half of them are viable. And you're like, boom, a lot of people have trouble finding that next product. So that's just a quick tip. So there you go.
Oh my God.
Little tip from Athena. But yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome.
So appreciate you. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time today and definitely looking forward to seeing what you guys get up to in the community.
Yeah, you guys should come to some of our events. We've got some great things planned all over the world. We do some really great things and we'd love to have you guys join us and connect with, the sellers that probably follow your podcast and love what you guys do. And probably some of the people that you've helped and clients that you guys have had that you've helped sell their businesses. So we'd love to include you in the future.
Consider us there.
Yeah.
Margaritas.
All these, being in Mexico right now, it's margaritas all day. Yep.
Love it. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again for just your time. And that was a lot of fun. You have great energy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey everyone, now that we wrapped up this episode and learned about the power of community in online businesses, we wanted to cover a common question about buying and selling online assets. So, this is a pretty common one. Who is most likely to invest in my business? I think that's a common question that new sellers have. They don't quite know who are these interested buyers that are out to really buy online businesses. If you're new to the space, you might not be familiar with how much the community of buyers is actually growing. So let's talk about a couple of the different parties that might be interested in your asset. First, high net worth individuals. So these might be people with their own wealth who have, a portfolio of businesses, or they're looking to diversify their investment portfolio. So these people might be looking to acquire your asset because that is their bread and butter of where their money is stored, or they're just looking to get into something new. They might be real estate moguls who are looking to get into online assets because they're hearing that there's tremendous ROI. So that might be one group. Now, of course, there's the private equity and aggregators. So they're typically pretty focused groups with their own capital, usually raised by investors. So they tend to be focused in one monetization. They might be aggregators who buy say just FBA businesses or just content businesses, but they're really looking for great assets to scale a portfolio and get returns for themselves and their investors. Kind of in the same realm, family offices, that's another type of buyer that we can see. So family offices, it's usually privately managed family wealth, and they're looking to continue wealth for generations of a particular family, and they're typically getting into online businesses for the same reason as some other investors. They're looking for diversified investments. Don't think there's a lot of family offices that are going just for online assets quite yet, but that's not to say couldn't be a thing in the future. And finally, flippers. So we like to call these people flipper Freds, entrepreneurs that may want to acquire a business because they see the potential to scale it with capital or better optimization. So kind of a different range of people, but there's lots of different buyers out there, all with different amounts of capital behind them and looking to buy businesses for themselves or portfolios or to continue to flip it and sell it in the future. So it's a great space. Lots of action going on. So no reason to think that there's no one out there that would want to buy your business. All right. So that wraps up this week's episode of the Opportunity Podcast. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We hope you've gained some valuable insight on the opportunities that digital acquisitions offer. Click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace to learn more about listings currently live on our platform. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review and subscribe to this podcast for more great content that'll be released soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Opportunity Podcast, and we're looking forward to having you back next week to hear from your fellow entrepreneurs and online experts.